Welcome back to the SBRMMA MMA podcast. I'm with today's guest, Simon Carson, great powerful man of Absolute MMA and MA1. Probably a humble figure too.
Great path for spirits.
How long have you been training in the martial arts thing now? You started with a PT business, right?
Yeah, I was probably always training, like doing a bit of boxing. I started with boxing probably when I was about 17, or karate as a kid, and boxing. Then got exposed to jiu-jitsu when I was in the commandos in the army or whatever. And I would do like boxing and a bit of grappling stuff with people in the P business. The PT, when I was like, I used to really enjoy that. And then I used to I think that's probably the first one in Melbourne to run like boot camps. I was doing commandos, and then I had some people see some stuff in America, and they wanted like an eligible fitness thing. And then in the end, I'd run like a couple of sessions of like boxing fitness stuff, basically. Just like back in the 90s. And so, that always used to get like really popular feedback when we used to the end of course sort of things. And then people would want to do, can I just do a full boxing fitness block? And so I always saw that the martial arts was a good way, not just in itself and like self-defense or fighting, but as a general engagement of getting people fit and active. So that was probably part of starting Absolute. Was more, I probably wasn't setting out to do some big competition team or that sort of thing. It was more probably using martial arts as a vehicle to get fit and healthy. But obviously the competition stuff, then
done pretty well. UFC fighters.
Obviously the jiu-jitsu team's been strong for a long time, and now the MMA team's getting good. So obviously your focus has changed. You get more and more into it. So I was probably more in the fitness side back then when I first started, and as I got more and more into it, I've got more into the competition side of it.
When did you start Absolute MMA?
We opened in 2010. We're trying to open in 2009. It took about a year and a half to get permits and a whole lot of stuff to get going, sort of thing. So 2010 now. So coming up to 15 years.
Wow, CBD first, right? Exhibition Street.
Yeah.
And then Collingwood.
Collingwood, and then South Yarra. St Kilda was Absolute South Yarra. So we took over from one of the Kiddale Infinity gyms. Yeah. And then obviously then we moved the South Yarra location to St Kilda. And I can't remember, Collingwood probably happened around the same time. Well, actually, the funny story is Collingwood, we were looking for a much bigger place in the CBD, and we just couldn't find it, so we had no room to expand. So Collingwood was like the closest to the CBD, where we're sort of trying to steal some members away to create more space.
Wow, two locations.
Yeah.
It's sick that there are three locations so close to each other, and that's quite unique.
It's good for staff. Like if someone calls in sick, you can go to call on each other and do that sort of stuff, and it allows better cross training than. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, realistically, I could ride my bike from St Kilda to Collingwood if I really need to.
Yeah.
It's unreal. And how long were you in the army for?
I was in the Commando Reserves for like 10 years, but being realistic, I probably was, useful for half of that. I took a lot of leave, stuff like that. So my certificate of service is 10 years, but that's pretty generous. On what I was, and for a few years I was right into it and kind of do like little bursts of like full-time service or whatever. But I was not 10 years on paper, but realistically I wasn't effective for 10 years.
Hugh, are you managing to get up for 6 a.m. jiu-jitsu, but not for your partner?
No, I'm really lonely.
Well, if you did have a partner, you could use Vitality's patented aphrodisiac blend. And with our discount code, SBRMMA20, you can check out from the store, not from the bedroom, with 20% off.
No, that's not too hard. Unlike me.
Would you recommend army reserves or?
I reckon it's great. Look, I joined as an 18-year-old that was stuffing around a fair bit. Commander's obviously a little bit different again, going through like the SO selection process is pretty tough. And I now look at it now, like starting that process as an 18-year-old and being on selection at 19 was like most of the people I see in the gym now, maybe some of them older, I see 18, 19-year-olds, I still see them with kids. I've got an 18-year-old and she's still definitely a kid. I think that's probably generationally things have changed a bit. And now I kind of go, oh shit, you're 18 years young. People can go in and join at 16. So
wow.
I feel
like that was a world away when I was 18. I was so silly.
Yeah. I started with so was I. So, but yeah, it kind of gives you a little bit more, teaches you to switch on and it's not, you don't have the option to do stuff. You know what I mean? It's not like another job where you can slack off. You slack off immediately. There's immediate consequences.
Yeah, that's repercussions. Yeah, whether it be in the reserves or obviously.
Yeah, look, I mean, the structure's the same, obviously. Look, a lot of time, like we did all the courses, you switch with the red commandos and all that sort of stuff, and the selection process is the same and stuff like that, but just you sort of, target. There's something obviously like when you go full time, you're signing up for 4 years, you can't get out of reserves, you can't get out of it any time. So, I think that's just a different mindset too. Like, I never saw that as my career. I was doing it as like a side thing. There was times where I did consider going full time, but like making that a career. But I was studying the whole time and always doing other stuff as well. So it was probably, the reserves has a really interesting mix of people, especially the commandos. It's like, I'd probably say when I was there, it was 40 or 50% were police, and a lot in the Solga, a lot in different places, different things within the police, but and a lot of police security, all those sorts of things. But then there was just general sort of corporate people and people that were into fitness. I remember going because I wanted to see if I could pass the fitness test. That was it. I had no intention of joining. And I was like, I've passed the first test, but then you kind of go, I haven't really got all the way in yet. So, and then they go, we've passed the first thing, but there's these other tests. So I'm like, what if I get through the next lot of tests? And then the next thing I got suckered in for 10 years. But yes, so
it's good in the sense that they pay for your education and stuff too.
if it's directly related, and that's where you sign a contract. So if you do sign, I don't know how it works now. Remember, I joined in 1996, 95. If you do a degree with them, then you have to give. And I'm going on 20-year-old information and why I didn't. But if you do the degree, when you do the degree, and it's a say 3 or 4 year degree, you then got to give the same amount of service plus a year back. So you're essentially, if you get funded for a 4-year degree, you're making a 9-year commitment. So they'll pay for your degree or whatever, and it's got to be certain degrees too. But they'll pay for your 4-year degree. Then you've got to give 4 years plus 1 back, and then it's all fully covered. So, and you can't walk away like you can in the reserve. So but there's lots of it's a great option for especially med and dentistry and those sorts of things. You go straight in as a captain or something if you're doing something like that as a young, it gives you a fairly good.
So I've been using these Breathe Ease Performance nasal strips and lip tape. So about 8 months ago, I had a surgery and I was really struggling with my snoring. And I've just been using the nasal strips and the lip tape, and that made such a difference. Julian, what is our discount code? SBRMMA 15 to get 15% off your Breathe Ease order. Guys, link in bio, check them out.
Career.
It's a bit of a push for young people to join, unless I'm just in a unique filter bubble.
Yeah, unless you've probably looked at their website, then you're probably being retargeted with everything. And then, I don't know much about what they're doing these days and stuff. I actually do know a little bit more of their recruitment stuff again. But
I saw it at Nationals. They were big stand.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, there you go. Well, they're obviously targeting. I suppose it's probably the right audience too. People in combat sports are probably a little bit more. I think you probably have to be slightly less risk averse than maybe the normal people. And I think people that do this would probably be a fair bit of crossover. So, yeah.
Do you think martial arts is for everyone?
I think it can be. I think, obviously competing in jiu-jitsu is not for everyone. I mean, it can be for most people. It depends on if we're talking about age. I think, everyone, as long as you're fit, well, and able or whatever to do it, and even that can be scaled back for you. It's just choosing the right thing at the right intensity. It can't be delivered the same way for everyone. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
How do you with your wealth of experience, how did you find differentiating your teaching? Because you've probably taught beginners, hobbyists, so many different diverse groups, all the way up to people like Jack Jenkins, UFC fighters.
Yeah. Oh, what do you mean? So
how did you find you need to differentiate?
It's obviously people are only capable of certain things. I mean, your messaging also has to be different for each person. if you want it to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it'll be like, I'm probably sometimes now a little bit like, hey, I'm not the best coach for everyone. Yeah, this is what I'm like a little bit. I know that I should change my style for this person, but I'm a little bit like, yeah, I'm going to be me. Maybe I'm not the right fit for them. You know what I mean? And then, but someone else that is, because I find it actually becomes too draining to actually try and be this or be that. And then, you know, so, you know, I'm probably think I'm sort of fairly technically proficient in, especially for the MMA stuff, but maybe I'm not someone that needs a really soft touch. I'm probably not that guy. You know, like, you know,
You be yourself.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a prick to anyone or whatever, but you know, like there's other people like Raja is really sensitive, like really good with that side of things. So sort of like, you know, like if I see someone spinning out the back in a fight, like I'm sometimes like, shit, I can recognize that they're not in a good headspace, but I'm not necessarily the best person to bring them out of that. I always go, don't worry, say do this, you're going to do this. So I try and solve it with a technical thing, whereas Raja's much better at like the touchy-feely stuff. I mean, that's with fighters, like when you're talking about general pop or people with, you know, different needs and those sorts of things.
There's a difference between being logical and being emotional.
Yeah, look, I think it's, you know, they're not like mutually exclusive or anything like that. Because sometimes reassuring people technically helps them with their headspace, but, you know, they're everyone's different in how they, can do that. Yeah.
How's it been working with such an elite Ferruti?
Look, you know, it's obviously, we've gone from having no one. Now we've obviously got Kaan and Jack and stuff. They're both matched now too. So
UFC Perth?
One for Perth. I don't know. I don't know when you can relate. Yeah. So they haven't. One's in Perth.
Or at least at a day after.
Yeah. And one's in Rio. So Kaan's actually fighting like a Brazilian in the UFC Rio card. So, you know, timing's not ideal. Kaan's wife's due with a baby on the 28th of September, and he's going to have to fly in like the 2nd. So 3 or 4 days after he gives birth to his first child. So that'll be a little bit tough. Perth would have been nice with Kaan, but they've pretty wanted to. They actually tried to. They both got off at each other. So the UFC don't really track where you're from, and we're so small.
No way.
So we've been hassling for fights for both of them. And then, because Jack's managed by Tim, and I'm managed sort of Kaan. And, Kaan also managed himself. I sort of do a little bit before follow-up. But, then we both get the offer to fight each other. So that was like, it's like, you got to be kidding me. I kept actually saying to the guys, I bet you they come back, because I can see the card filling up. They're both in the same weight class. They're both coming off a loss. So I was like, I bet they put no, they won't do that. They won't do that. And sure enough, they did do that. So, yeah, anyway. But yeah, they were fine. They've both made them.
Theoretically, it's perfect, but...
No, it's not. Yeah, well, they won't.
Like, objectively, it'd probably be exciting.
They're going to be... I suppose for me, it's like I saw 6 rounds of it this morning, you know, I don't need to see that again. We wouldn't even consider doing that. I know some of the gyms that had guys on the same team fight, and one coach has taken them, and one, I couldn't imagine doing that.
No.
Yeah. I think they're like obviously really big gyms at the top. I mean, if it comes that, you know, Jack's got the title and kind of like, okay, and get like, you know what I mean? Like, but unless you're in the top 3 or something and you're either fighting for the title or to eliminate 2 fights for the title, that'd be the only time I think you even consider having teammates fight. But yeah, we're not that big like some of these huge gyms in America that might have 15 or 20 guys in the UFC. So yeah, we've only got 2 in there, and to fight each other's a bit rough. So anyway. Yeah.
What do you think is the hardest thing besides that, being an MMA coach, a professional MMA coach?
The hardest thing? I don't know if there's one particular thing. It's not like the actual sessions are. I think people, to do the job well, I think you're doing a lot more time not taking class than what like opponent research and watching tape and coming up with play, and then making specific drills that are going to be suitable for that opponent and for that fight and all those sorts of things. That's actually all the work, you know what I mean? Taking a class is actually pretty easy, you know, like running a syllabus, like, because I have like a 12-month syllabus that rolls through, that's actually easy, you know what I mean? Like I'll have like, we're going to do a month on this, 2 weeks on this, then, you know, space for revision blocks back to what we've done and all that. So that part's easy. It's actually probably all the specific to try and run that. So when you've got 18, 20 people in the room, do you try and progress through a syllabus and you've got 14 people not matched, 6 matched, and then one's fighting southpaw, and this guy's going to fight a guy that's wrestling. And so you can't, to get them properly prepared, you can't just run the one class, so you got to keep break. That's the part that's,
So you differentiate the classes depending on the individual.
Yeah, so like there'll be like a portion at the start that will be a group, and then like on like Tuesdays and Thursdays it then breaks away in the second half. People are fighting to do like fight simulation or specific drills, and there's one fight team session a day, and for the other session they'll go and do whether it be jiu-jitsu or striking, or do their own work and have a specific focus on pads or trying to get them the right looks for whoever they're fighting. So
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's probably the part that takes more work than, I mean, we've probably right now got 7 or 8 of the pros matched already for September. So we've got like quite a few on Eternal, and obviously the UFC and Beatdown and Hex next weekend. So there's a fairly busy block, and they're all quite everyone's opponent's different, and everyone's skill set's different. So if you just did the one class, it wouldn't really get them.
Wow. So you could have potential to be 9 or 10 different lessons.
Yeah, so that's on the pros. On the amateurs, like I don't do much. Like I'll have a very quick look at, okay, this is your opponent, he's orthodox or southpaw or whatever. 2 reasons for the amateurs, but I don't play it. 3 reasons if you count. There'd just be too much time. But I used to early days, and when we had mainly amateurs and there wasn't too many pros, I would research the hell out of the amateurs. But you make a mistake that the guys have 1 or 2 fights and you over-research that fight. But you've only been training 12 months, now he's been training 2 years, and they change and they evolve. So you over-plan, and then if you get your guy so fixed that when he does this, I'm going to do this, and when he does that, I'm going to do this, and then he doesn't do that because he's changed, because the other guy's evolving and changing, then it can actually put them off. It can be detrimental to planning. Whereas once they get to the UFC, they've had 10 amateur fights and their 15 to 20 pro fights. There's a pretty good pattern of behaviour, like on what you can expect. So in some respect, even the guys that are really good, there's more footage and there's more stuff around. When you're like looking at an amateur who's had 2 fights and neither of them, there's no video of them everywhere. You really don't know what yet. So you can't overplan. So I always say with the amateurs, my goal is to get you a wide range of experience and just keep work. I don't want to take you out of that syllabus and the skill development program, because my aim's not to get you the best version of you to fight this guy in 6 months. It's to make you the best fighter I can in 3 years' time. So it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to go through the syllabus, get all everything we want you to know down pat, and then in 3 years you'll be good. And these fights you have on the way are just experience to sort of tick off as you go, rather than trying to be a UFC fighter. We're trying to get you the best version of you to fight that guy on that day, because you've already got all the baseline skills. We're not teaching you all the basics again. Whereas an amateur, that's only a year or 2 years into the sport, they still have a lot to just learn on the basic skill stuff, right? So I wouldn't want to take them out of skill development for 3 months to try and do specific training for this guy when that guy could change. And amateurs, so many pull-outs, so many, especially in the early fights. I'd say 50% of amateur fights fall over, like the other, especially if they're from maybe gyms that don't put a lot of people in, they don't maybe take the commitment to fight as seriously as some other places do. So, you over-plan for taking out a skill development for 3 months to work on this amateur fight that doesn't go ahead. It's a bit of a flop. Yeah. In the late set amateurs, when they're fighting someone that's had 6 or 8 amateur fights, and then we do a little bit of practice more about game planning, but it's more about the preparation to going pro, that they get a little bit of a look at, hey, we want you to do this, or listen to this, or listen to this call, or those sorts of things. So, but yeah, early on, and even early pros, we're not like over planning, so people that are too early on, or so it's sort of be dependent. It's very opponent specific.
That's super clever. That's something I really appreciate about the culture of MMA fighters. I wonder whether this is top down or just something that an idea that seems to exist organically. There's a lot of guys focus on amateur fights outside of their main discipline first, before they have their amateur MMA fight.
Yeah.
I hear Sammy talk about it often as well when he talks to like people that want to fight.
Yeah.
Super clever. Because then they go into their first amateur MMA fight, and they're like 50 jiu-jitsu matches, maybe 3 boxing, like 4 Muay Thai fighters. They're not really going in as a pure amateur. They have a great skill set.
I definitely think I've only done it a couple of times, and I probably would never do it again. Of where I put an amateur and their first competition experience is MMA, because it's just the nerves. It's a lot like jiu-jitsu is a great way to, like, it's a low risk, no nerves, but it's still competing. You're still against the guy that's fully resisting and you're trying to win, So jiu-jitsu is a great start because you don't have the risk of getting punched in the head. And then, then I think, the boxing and kickboxing, they're like 90-second rounds too and stuff like that. I think like the VAMA stuff, like a VAMA kickboxing fight, it's like 3 1.5 minute rounds, right? So that's a good start. So I'd love them to have like a striking match of some sort just to get those nerves out, and then, and then the grappling things. It's funny when you get like experienced grapplers come across to MMA of where you start them, because they're actually probably further away from being competitive in a kickboxing, even a VAMA kickboxing fight. But if they're a brown belt or whatever, you put them down in an amateur MMA fight, they've probably got a good chance to win that. But I would normally say that's not how I would like to go about it. Because then, if they're getting hurt in their kickboxing fight, there's nothing, they can't try and force the wrestling, whereas at least in an MMA fight, they can at least force the grappling.
They could pay a little bit.
Yeah. But the hard part is that they normally have to either, if you've got a brown belt and you're looking to do your amateur debut or something, you don't get a guy that's a 0-0 white belt with no experience. Even then, you might be a 0-0, like brown belt or whatever, but that will be looked after. So you probably got to take someone that's had 5 or 6 amateur MMA fights, or have always a really good striker, or so I'm a little bit, and sometimes also too, I don't get it. For me, the amateurs, I'm also looking at, I don't really care if they win or lose, it's about experience, right? But it's also, I don't want them to get their head kicked in the way. I always don't mind if they're out grappled. So if I've got a guy that's had 6 or 8 kickboxing fights, whatever, I'll take the brown belt on the other side. So I'm like, look, the brown belt's probably more likely to win. You know what I mean? You'll probably force the grappling and you're not going to keep up. But you'll get subbed or you'll get ground and pounded a bit. But ground and pounded, puffy gloves, it's low velocity as opposed to if your striking's not up to it, and you're the brown belt, the way you lose is a lot worse. Like you get slapped. Or just like you're more likely to get slapped, or probably beat up. So, and amateurs, I'm not so fussed about the result. It's just, I'll only say no to stuff if I'm like, well, my guy's a jiu-jitsu guy that can't really wrestle, so he's going to struggle to get up to the ground. And the other guy's got way better striking, good takedown defense, so it's going to end up standing. He's going to get holes punched at him. So that's probably the only grounds I really say like no for.
If you were to create like a MMA fighter as a character, say this is a video game.
Yeah.
What would you, if you had to min-max them in one way, so like increase their stats to 10 out of 10 for grappling, or striking, or do you think you would?
Well, I think it depends if you put wrestling as grappling. Like I suppose, Well, then I think like the better wrestler gets to choose where the fight takes place. I think wrestling's probably the most simple one skill for MMA, because if you're the better striker and you're the better wrestler, and if your jiu-jitsu's not very good, you probably can disengage and scramble to the top. You're gonna have a hard time. I don't think you have to have really super technical jiu-jitsu for MMA. But if you've got really good, if your striking sucks, but your wrestling's really good, and then you've also got good jiu-jitsu, then that's great. So I think you need either, if you're a striker or a jiu-jitsu guy, you need wrestling. Doesn't matter. Both of them, and if you need at least 2 of the 3, or so that would be, because if you can strike really well, and then if you've got good jiu-jitsu, if you get taken down, then that's probably okay. If your wrestling's great, but I'd pick wrestling first because then you can choose.
So wrestling's the foundation, and from there you can pick striking, like a knockout power or finishing power from the ground. I
suppose finishing power versus is a different thing again. What finishing threats you need, because you can be a really good striker, like technically. Like I think being really defensively sound would be my first preference in striking, rather than the knockout power. Because if you're knockout power, but you get hit a lot, it's not the great. Like as much as it sounds, you got to actually be wary of people's life after fighting. And I love watching like a Gaethje fight or a Hollow fight stuff, but I'm like, I don't know how they're going to be, Like, you don't want to get slept too much. You know, if you've got knockout power, it's a great training to be able to willing to stand in the pocket and take one to give one. Like, don't get me wrong, but you don't want to make that your staple of being a fighter, or your career's not going to be that long. It would be the other thing.
Who are some examples over time of excellent, say, takedown defense or striking defense? Looking at like Sean Strickland would be
Sean's got really good like takedown defense in the way he sort of crowds people and so forth. And he's effective with his striking defense, but I don't think you wouldn't teach his style to people. I think he just has that many gym wars through. But that would not be the way I would go at it. But all respect to him and stuff like that. I think striking defensively and stuff like that, like Izzy and Silver and those guys, like amazingly hard to hit. You know what I mean? And it's not that classic high guys movement and positioning and stuff, which made it hard to hit. Like I obviously really enjoy watching. Yeah. And everyone focuses on how good they are offensively, right? But they do that from being so defensively sound. You know what I mean? Like if you're getting hit, cracked on your way in all the time, then it doesn't matter how good your offense is.
And you can train more in the gym when you have an ability to stay safe.
What's that, sorry?
You can train a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you want to create an environment too that you're not getting cracked and murdered all the time. So otherwise, like you end up fighting in the gym. You should be training, trying to get better. Good takedown defense. I reckon Volk's fantastic too. Like, you don't get to see Volk. Apart from package, I've got him down a few times, obviously, but he's got pretty outstanding takedown defense.
Maybe not DDP.
I think. I haven't actually seen that fight yet, but geez, everyone's into it, aren't they? He did pretty well. It's his first loss in the UFC. I think he got a couple of guys some slack. He's not the. Again, it's probably you wouldn't teach his style to people, but he did pretty well. I think actually, I know I'm sort of sounding very Aussie biased, but I think Rob Whittaker's had a fantastic takedown defense. I think Jack Dalla's got takedown defense, but they kind of use. I know that jiu-jitsu is good, but they kind of use the wrestling and scrambling style thing. Like you look at the way that Dalla does a lot of Granby rolls and stuff like that. Like he's sort of like wrestling crossover stuff to get himself free a lot of the time. Rob does similar sorts of things. He probably does classically more. I know he does a lot of straight wrestling because I think one of Connor's mates, Jade or whatever, and the guy's on there and he's
Jade Lord.
Yeah. Wow. I think so. Yeah. And then and obviously he's got pretty good jiu-jitsu with Alex and stuff, but I know they have a fairly strong wrestling focus there as well. So, their takedown defense is really quite good.
JDM's ability to stay safe and then counter is incredible.
Yeah, he puts himself right in the fire, like really well. And he actually does have a more classically high guard style and boxing head movement and so forth. But yeah, I really enjoy watching. Yeah, I think he's fantastic to watch. Like it is really exciting.
Yeah, he did hit with that flying knee, did the Granby roll to the Brazilian. He was
Gilbert Burns.
Gilbert Burns.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns is high level jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yeah. And he had a broken arm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he did. That was a fantastic fight. Yeah. I didn't realise that because he was also down on the scorecards when he finished him. So he was going to lose that fight.
Wow.
He didn't agree with the scorecards, but he was down 2 rounds, I believe.
And he broke his arm.
Yeah, he broke his arm
from the check.
Yeah, I can't remember when it was, but I know he had a broken arm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's public knowledge, but yeah. So he broke his arm because I know he had lots of complications after that, so he was out for a bit of time. But it was also back of that. Yeah.
What do you think makes Australian fighters so good? We've got some pretty good guys.
I think we do have like a good level of. I think the jiu-jitsu is pretty. Like I think our jiu-jitsu is now pretty good. We've obviously always had that wrestling gap, but I think we're kind of doing like a hybrid style for MMA. I still think MMA is like a bastardized version of wrestling, you know what I mean? And sort of wrestling was jiu-jitsu and the fence completely changes it again as well. And the fence is a great equaler, so I think we've closed that gap. I'm sure if you put our guys in like straight freestyle wrestling against the American guys or the Russians and shit, we'd get pumped. But I think in MMA crossed over with jiu-jitsu, you can bridge that gap a little bit easier. Yeah. So I think we've always had pretty good striking pedigree. I think there's been a fairly good level of boxing, and I think like Thai boxing, like we've had lots of high level Thais coming out here for a long time. There's been a real cultural thing of Australians going to Thailand for a long time. Yeah, it's been a big thing probably for the last 10, 15 years, and we cross-trained a lot.
Some Dutch guys too, eh?
Yeah, there's been a few. Yeah.
Chong Wing Pa, Stan Lomini, Sam Greco, Max Zambides.
Yeah.
There's been some incredible kickboxers. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And like a really good level of striking for but even straight boxing, like you're going back to Jeff Phoenix, that sort of ones, but I think like the standard of the striking sports has been pretty good, and I think that's a sort of continue to go. And I think the jiu-jitsu standard here is pretty good. Obviously, we had Dragon Lock and all those sorts of things come out of here. So, I think like there's a lot in all the individual sports. So it's, so I think, per capita, I think we've done a really good job producing like UFC champs. So, yeah.
It might not have been the case in the early days, but you can pretty much compete every weekend. Yeah, like in Melbourne, for example, if you compete in something.
Yeah, you don't need MMA. There's a real lack of MMA in Victoria at the moment, which is unfortunate. But there's jiu-jitsu comps and probably the striking stuff and all the individual sports quite frequently. Yeah.
Why do you think there's a lack of competition? Because I remember reading early on that cage sport hasn't been here for a while because of the rules. Right?
Yeah, correct.
In Victoria, not long.
5 or 6 years, for maybe a little bit longer. I can't remember. I definitely remember. Like the first Hex was in a ring. Like, like we had people on Hex 1 that was in a ring. Anthony Trejo and Ralph Bertel, I think, both fought on the first Hex. Why it doesn't work, I don't know. It's like I've run the road show as well, obviously. I've lost money every time, so it's not a real incentive to do it again. I think Hex are doing it okay, but I don't think the risk and reward on running shows. It's like there's no massive pot of gold at the end of it. The only reason I've run them is to try and get my guys fights, where I can't do that. So at one stage we had Bushido that Dennis Kelly was running, and we had Demolition that Wayne Carl was running, and they were both really good people that were trying to do good things for the sport. But eventually, they probably also go to a lot of, like, I don't know how they're financial. I think Wayne did a pretty good show and might have been like, I don't want to talk about something else of finance, but he probably at least broke even. But at the end of the day, if you look at how much work and how much risk and how much goes into it, it's not a lot of payback on the other side of it. I don't know how Dennis's show went as well, but I think Dennis and Wayne ran them for the right reasons, but unfortunately didn't keep going. So at one stage, I think it was 23 or 24, you probably had Bushido, Demolition, Road running, and Hex. It's pretty much just Hex. Dan Kelly's just starting an amateur show, so that'll be good that another guys will do that. But I think he's only looking to do 1 or 2 a year. So at the moment, there's only Hex running 4 shows a year with the Road to Hex. The United Ascension's not running anymore too. That was the other amateur show. The team stopped running that as well.
So why?
So we had Ascension, Demolition, Bushido, Rogue, Hex, and this year we Hex. So it's really quite it's
tough. And where else would you go for? MMA
we put a lot on Eternal.
Queensland.
Yeah, so look, and look, and Eternal try to get us on and look after us best they can. But essentially, most of the time we're going to be fighting the local. Or Beatdown, so Damo show, Damo Brown's a really good guy, he runs a great show. We put people on Beatdown, we'll put them on Eternal, we'll put them, I'll take it wherever we go to New Zealand for Shuriken or Stealth or whatever. So, I'm not fussed. Like, as long as they're fair matchups, we'll fight wherever. But it's funny, like Melbourne and Sydney are like most of the Australian population, and there's not many shows between there. So I think because we've obviously got the Victorian Combat Sports Board, but they're one of the stricter combat sports board tour. So it's there's a little bit more red tape and bureaucracy to run shows in Victoria, and say Queensland doesn't have a state body, so they can do what they want. Basically, they contract a private MMA Australia organisation, but they're like an individual, like a not-for-profit, not government, and don't actually have, like, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. Like, I don't think Damien actually don't think he uses them, and Eternal does. So Damien just does it all with house. We just don't have that option. That's why there's that bare knuckle in the 1 minute fighting stuff and all that in Queensland. But I can get away with that. It was really weird how that bare knuckle decided that I will go to Perth, and WA probably have the other strictest. WA and Victoria have the strictest combat sports boards, and then they chose to go there, which was, I don't think that was always cool. If you went to Queensland, it would have got shut down. Anyway,
It's weird, but WA has WA is the nanny state. I'm from West Australia.
Yeah.
originally.
yeah,
It makes sense. Victoria's the education state, right? But
yeah, yeah. But yeah, WA's got some funny rules, but anyway, like about their weight cutting. So, you only can step on the scales once. If you're overweight, you've missed, you don't get to recut, because they're not allowed to have any, you're not supposed to dehydrate in WA. So use of a sauna is illegal. Sauna blankets, any weight cutting aids.
Really?
He's all banned in WA.
the average day.
So yeah,
Sauna.
it's a crazy rule. I was in response to like a young girl doing like an MMA Thai boxing fight, went butting in a sweatsuit and had a heat stroke and died. Like horrible, shouldn't happen, right?
Yeah,
But
I remember that.
but but that I just think the rule to not be able to check your weight again, because everywhere else you've got 2 hours to make the weight. So I don't know if you know, but you step on the scales, you're overweight. Not 2 hours from when you first step on the scales, but there'll be a 2 hour window, like 10 at weigh-ins that start at 10 a.m. and then 12 p.m. is cut off to make the weight. But if you get on at 10 a.m. and you're like 400 grams over, and then you'll go, oh, shit, I've got to go cut 400 grams more. So like, you cut the weight. But now, let's think, if you only know that you only have one chance to make that weight, you're going to cut extra.
Yeah, it's even more dangerous, right?
Because it does the exact opposite. Because if you're worried that the scale's going to be out, or this is going to be out, if I turn up to the venue and I step on the scales, I can't check the weight. And they ban check scales. But yeah, it's going to make people cut more weight. If you're going to make 66 and you know that if you go 66.1, you've now officially missed weight and you're not allowed to cut that 100 grams. What are you going to do? You're going to go lower, so that doesn't happen, right? So I just think the rule doesn't serve the purpose it's meant to. Anyway.
What do you think?
I'll get banned from cornering in WA. Keep talking, but yeah.
This is just a theoretical conversation.
Yeah, but anyway.
What
I've got to go there next. Like, I'm some UFC Perth. So.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And the territory in October as well. So, anyway, there you go.
I'm sure that one.
Yeah. No, I'll listen to your podcast.
No,
We'll be fine. Same as mine. We'll probably have the same 3 listeners. Let's hope that Zach's tuning in. He was our only listener.
I was stoked having Liv Charles on the podcast yesterday.
Okay.
Hopefully our female viewership
goes up. Yeah.
Couple percentages.
Yeah, that's it.
Probably 2 female viewers.
Yeah.
What would be the optimal weight cutting rule set if you were to create your own, say, Simon Carson Invitational? What would your weight cutting rule set be?
I actually, for what's out there, and we're
back.
yeah. So let's just start again from there. But I don't agree with everything that one does. But I think their weight cutting is probably the hydration testing. Now I know people say that there's cheating that can happen with that. Like there's certain ways that you can manipulate that. But you can't be as severely dehydrated, right? So if you're cutting carbs and sodium, manipulating your weight and all that stuff, I'm fine with that, right? It's I'm going to do 10 kilos in the sauna on the last day. That's what is super dangerous, right? And you will not pass hydration if you do that, right? So, because people even say, you get close, you cut your carbs, and you do this, and then you drink some water, and you hold it in your bladder, and then you go in the sauna, you cut 2 kilos, and you'll pass the hydration. There's different things around that. But the fact is, you've still drunk water 2 hours before you go in there, whereas these guys doing 10 kilos are not doing that. You know what I mean? So it's not perfect. People can still manipulate it, but it stops the really severe ones where people are dying. Yeah. So I think it just sort of puts some, I know they've made every weight division moves up. So like their featherweight's lightweight, normal, like their featherweight, it's 65.7 and 66.2 with the allowance. They don't have the allowance, there's no scale allowance, but they'll 70.3 is the cutoff for featherweight. So then that's so that but you can't dehydrate. But most of the featherweights like a Jack or Kaan will come into fight week 73 to 74 kilos and do the manipulation stuff, and then probably start fight day at 69, 70 kilos, do 3 kilos in fluid. And that's not too bad. But at 1, they just do the diet and then they get to 70. And they don't do the last sort of part, which I think is ideal. They could probably even be able to probably walk in 2 kilos heavy because you can still do a small amount, the smaller amount, the lighter, but they're not doing the crazy cut, you know what I mean? And there's some people, because obviously I think one championship had someone die during the weight cut or whatever. Yeah, it stops those ones. If that guy had to pass hydration, and even if he was trying to cheat it, he still would have drunk water to hold in his bladder, which, you know, would have, you know, been, it's still, he can't be that dehydrated, you know. So, yeah, I know people say it's not perfect and you cheated and all this, but it's still, yeah, for what's out there, I think it's good.
Yeah, kills Murphy's Law, right? The worst thing can't really happen.
Yeah.
Which is good.
But yeah, if you had the choice, it would be like, especially for amateurs, I know you asked about this before the thing, but for amateurs, it would be like, you can have a weigh-in when they get to the venue and a weigh-in before they hop in the cage, and you, like if you're fighting at 70 kilos, you've got to make the 70 kilos and you can't go up more than 3%. You know what I mean? So people pick their walk around weight. And then you can, because half the time with amateurs, if you've done a full-on cut and you've done your 74 to 66 kilos, I'm probably not going to book you again 3 weeks later, you know, because it takes 3 or 4 weeks for your cerebral spinal fluid to come back. The weight cut's tough on your body, right? So you can't fight every month. If you could just go, I'm just going to fight at 70 kilos and I'm allowed to go up 3%, so I can be 72. I'm going to cut my walk around weight to 72 and I'll stop carbs for a few days. 70, I'll weigh in the mornings and I'll have some Gatorade and get my weight, my sugars back up a little bit, and then I'll walk in at 72. Safe, and I can fight again in 4 weeks' time. And I'd love to see that with the amateurs. And then you could have a real, like, regular, you know, a fight 8 or 10 times. Yeah. Unfortunately, our amateurs don't get as much experience as they could. You look at like the amateur boxing and amateur kickboxing model, they'll have like 8 or 10 fights in a year, easily, you know, even like Muay Thai big skies or the amateur kickboxing and stuff. So it'd be great to have some model that's more like that, where people, you know, fight more often, get more experience, and then, yeah, moves through. Because I think most of the time people spend, probably take them 2 years to get 5 fights as an amateur. It's probably pretty average. You know, a busy year would be 3, really busy year 4, but that would be probably a quieter year for an amateur kickboxer. So, but I don't have many guys, and I try to keep my guys, because I'm also like, if you get into this sport and you want to make it pro and you're going to give up working a proper job, and yeah, because a lot of the guys that fight do side jobs, you know what I mean? So you might as well find out if it's for you, you know what I mean? Like, give it a proper crack, and if you're ready to go, you're not injured, you fight, you do it, you keep getting experience, and then see where you can go. So yeah, I think you can stack them up quickly that way. I think people that don't, you know, you have 1 or 2 amateur fights a year and you don't work a proper job, what are you doing? Being realistic.
Sure.
Yeah. So you might as well either work on a career or work on making this your career. But yeah, sort of doing it half-assed or taking a 15 or 20 hour a week job to work around your training. You're making a fair sacrifice, so you might as well fight. Yeah.
What is in your opinion, the optimal way to cut weight? What's the best protocol?
I mean, it depends on the timing and how long you got to rehydrate and so forth. Like, I think I spoke to you ages ago, you mentioned at the start.
Yeah, it's an excellent conversation.
But yeah, so it's very different if it's a jiu-jitsu comp where it's weight on the same day versus an MMA where it takes you about 24 hours to get your muscle glycogen fully recovered. Rehydrating fluid's actually a quicker process than the carb replenishment, and just trying to make sure you're getting your electrolyte balances and everything back in. But yeah, the acute phase, the last day, that weight in the sauna shouldn't be more than like, I think 5% of your body weight. I kind of think you just kind of do like 5. General rule for me with the guys is you can do 10% of your body weight from what you start at to what you're fighting at, and you do 5% through cutting carbs, so manipulation of water load, and then you can do up to 5% in the sauna. So, on a featherweight, that would be, roughly 3 kilos in the sauna on the last day, or 3 to 4 kilos over 5 weeks. So if you're doing the weight that you're starting at, so you're 73 kilos, that means you can cut 73.3. Let's say 73.5 kilos, then you're going to cut 7.5 kilos 5 weeks. That gets you to 66, right? And then you do roughly half of that through the day, and then half of that on the day, and there rules. You can go up to 12% sort of thing. When you start pushing it more than that, I think it's when you start to have performances. And then you walk back in the cage normally at least 73.5, normally 74.5, because you're all carb loaded up. Everything's back to from store. So that sort of tends to be using featherweight as an example, that would be fairly what I consider safe. 10% throughout the week, 5% on 5 day, 5% through the diet, and then you should walk back into the cage of what we were 7 days out. Normally plus maybe 1%. Yeah, they're the basic numbers. Now you can push that more, but everything comes at a cost.
Yeah, naturally. But over time, like sweating is something you can practice, right?
Heat acclimation, you get more efficient at sweating, yeah. But you're still losing, like, you're still dehydrating yourself. Yeah, you get more efficient, the weight comes off quicker and all that sort of shit, but yeah, it's still, like how fast you sweat doesn't really change the level of dehydration. Yeah.
Do you think dehydration is something that's necessary for jiu-jitsu athletes? Say we were doing a 24-hour before weigh-in, like trials is a classic example, right?
Trials is such discrepancy the weight, like so, like 66, 77, 88. They're big jumps in weight class, right? So, yeah, I'm like, if you can get, like, I'd much rather, if you can make 77, then you make 77, don't do 88. So, but I'd still be sort of in that vicinity of the same numbers. If you want to make 77, you should be 85 kilos. Start 5 weeks, then follow it. But if you've got 24 hours, then yeah. If you're kind of at that in-between weight where you have to murder yourself to try and make 77, then maybe you don't try to put a couple of kilos of muscle on. So, if you're 95 kilos, I don't think you're going to make 77. If you're lean and, and the other rule, the 10 to 10%, I'd also say 10% body fat is a very general rule too, right? So if you're 15% body fat, like you've got 5% body fat, come down to like from 95 to 90, and then yes, there's a bit more, and then you might be into that vicinity of making 77. Yeah, but if you're 95 kilos and you're 10% body fat, 77 is the class. It's 88. Try to put a couple of kilo inputs more on, being the top. I think the 10% rule is pretty safe and a good rule, but not to be confused with bad packs where you weigh in the morning before you come back. You just want to be primed and optimal, like to pick your walk around weight, be lean, don't be cutting carbs 5 weeks and shit to make weight because you're going to perform like shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never forget, I trained a little bit when I was in WA with Louis shows, with Louis show. Yeah. I was trained by Quill and Cody. And Quill would just treat weight cuts for jiu-jitsu competitions and just say, it's just a jiu-jitsu comp. Like, he was never nervous. Just go in and smash everyone. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you just go in with your normal weight?
Yeah, look, for me, it's like, it's not,
It's so funny. I was still go up. It's like, jiu-jitsu is such a big thing for me, and I thought, it's so hard winning. Yeah. Cutting weight for a jiu-jitsu comp might not be so serious. And they're just going.
Yeah, you just want to be, just be lean in at the right weight. Yeah, like that, dude. I wouldn't be same day events. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, any closing thoughts, Mr. McCarthy, behind the camera?
I'd actually love to hear how like the promotion coaching has changed in like the digital era. So you've seen obviously social media start to have like a big impact on like fighter profiles, recognition, the extra work they'd have to do. I'd love to see if that you see that as a distraction or a positive thing.
For the coach, for the athletes, you mean?
Yeah, for like what you're seeing coming up, like all the extracurriculars they're now having to do.
Yeah, like how, I'm just trying to think of like, I mean, unfortunately, like on a local level, so I don't know what you want me to sort of talk about. Like, you asked me some questions about what fighters have to do, like for promotion. No. Did you just need to ask it, or like?
If you could, no, you can answer for how I did it.
Yeah,
please.
So you were meant to have asked if. Look, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, winning and fighting is not everything if you want to make this your career. So the promotion is an unfortunate part of it, whether that be right on a local level. Shows will work for you and want to get you on if you sell tickets. Unfortunately, I didn't care about that when I ran Rogue, and that's why I'm pretty much always set me under. So I would say, and most of the other shows are a little bit more savvy with that. You need to sell tickets. You need to promote yourself, and promoting yourself on socials and doing all that stuff's a big part of that now, and pushing ticket sales and stuff in the gym is an important part when you're local. And then as you get bigger, having an Instagram following, having engagement and moving the needle on metrics, for even the bigger promotions, they want you to sell pay-per-views and that. I think also people have got to realize where they are and not when you're a 2-ticket amateur, your job's to sell tickets to your mate and put a poster up and say, come to my show, and keep putting stuff up there. It's not to get on the microphone and make bullshit comments about your opponents or about them. I think there's a couple of amateur teams I've had to talk to. That's not how we do it. Like amateurs, no one gives a shit. You're not trying to sell pay-per-views. You're not trying to engage the general public. No one gives a shit about you jumping on the mic and carrying on like an idiot. And, what you need to do is hustle, build your own profile, and sell tickets. And then as you go on, then you can start. There's a place for, if you're developing a character that people can either love or hate or whatever, as you get like higher on and so forth, then that's important, like showing some personality so people follow it. But I think there's nothing cheesier than the guy in his second amateur fight going, I'm the best, I'm the greatest. Like, come on, mate, like, sit down. Like, or I've had one of our guys, like, he'll know who he is if he's listening to this, but jump on the mic and go, you're hunchy shit, you're this, and you have to be like, what are you doing, mate? So that place has no place. I'm like, you've just got to realize where you're at and what your mission is. At that particular stage. That particular person didn't sell a ticket either, so I think just carry on like an idiot. That does not endear yourself to the promotions. I
love that. Shout out Kaan to Uzman, the best weigh-in I've ever seen with the selfie.
Oh, that was so cringe. But it wasn't a selfie stick. He strapped an iPhone to his head with a bandage. He's definitely not. I wasn't referring to him. He's good. Through IMF at the time, like if you're an elite amateur competitor, so we got a lot of our guys signed off through that. So I would actually say coming out of COVID, like we probably got because I talked about really hard to run the classes with these 14 doing the syllabus, these doing the fight prep and all that. I got to go, everyone, we're going to do a year of skill development. And we're just going to up your skills. And everyone trained every session because they had nothing else on. So I knew who I was going to have in the room. And we actually made like training pods of 6 people, and you made a commitment to your 6 people. So there was we taped up the mats into sections to minimize like disease spread, right? But we had your training pod of 6, and you'd make a commitment that if you got in that pod of 6, you committed to the other 5 people in your pod that you were going to be there for the 2 sessions a day, right? So we did two 90-minute sessions, 90 minutes to 2 hours every day for like a year and a half throughout COVID. And everyone that was in that just came back. I think it was Jack and it was Kaan. It was like, it was all those guys like Joey at the time was like 1-1 going into COVID. And then
no way.
He came out of COVID, won 7 in a row, got to PFL. So I think the results coming out of COVID were, I can't remember. I think it was like that. 2019, we had a really good year. And then obviously going to 2020, we thought it was going to be huge. And then it wasn't. So we had that one fight for a year, pretty much, or a year and a half. And then, but then sort of that 21-22 period, we had a great run. And I probably attribute that to the training during COVID, having the strong commitment to the group that you're in, and it was all matched on your weight and size. So you have like 5 people in your thing, and it was skill development stuff, and everyone did the same skill development program because you didn't have to pull people out for specific fights. So I think it was probably the best development period I've seen the group jump. It was kind of like an artificially, like that set of scenarios probably never happened. Well, I'm hoping it never happens again. But it was good for skill development stuff.
It's a convoluted topic, but something that always pops up in our conversations is the ecological approach. As buzzwordy as it is, but it's an interesting constraint, right? Like the 6 pods with 6 athletes were constrained to people with their own weight. Ordinarily in a class, you'd be training with so many different things. The fact that you got to train, especially for MMA fights, it's probably super useful.
Look, I don't think it hurts being with people outside your weight and experience, but I think it's not bad being in diversity, but as intensity increases, you should be closer in size and skill. I think it's when having easy rounds and stuff, it's fine to spread it out. So it's time to go a little bit harder, more intense. I think being more closely matched is important. Cool. All right, cool.
Let's do it.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the conversation.
No worries.
The real chat. Cool.